For 30 years, Flight TR-219 was a ghost, vanished in the Arctic without a trace. No wreckage, no distress signal, just silence. Then, in early 2024, scientists stumbled upon something shocking beneath the ice: the missing plane. But what they found next was even more baffling. Strange objects lay beside the wreck, raising questions no one expected. Could this discovery rewrite history? Did the crew survive longer than people thought? The answers are as puzzling as they are fascinating. Join us as we dive into this chilling mystery and uncover the truth behind Flight TR-219, the vanished flight. It was Christmas Eve, 1991, a night filled with warmth, laughter, and the magic of the holiday season. All around the world, families gathered by their fireplaces. Kids struggled to fight off sleep, hoping to catch a glimpse of Santa, and the air was thick with the mouth-watering scent of festive feasts. But high above the frozen Arctic, far from the twinkling lights and holiday cheer, Flight TR-219 soared through the dark winter sky. On board, 150 passengers and crew members settled in for what was supposed to be an uneventful journey. Parents whispered to their restless children, promising Christmas morning surprises. Couples held hands, eager for long-awaited reunions. Flight attendants moved gracefully down the aisles, offering steaming cups of cocoa as soft Christmas music played in the background. Through the windows, the world below was a vast, icy wilderness, bathed in a pale silver glow beneath the full moon. In the cockpit, Captain Daniel Henderson and his seasoned crew were at ease. This route was second nature to them, a familiar stretch they had navigated countless times. Their aircraft, a sturdy Lockheed L-1011 TriStar, was built for long-haul flights and had a reputation for reliability. Everything about the journey was routine. Then, without warning, the Arctic night turned vicious. A monstrous winter storm materialized out of nowhere, slamming into the plane with terrifying force. Winds roared at over 120 mph, the kind that could uproot trees and send icebergs crashing into each other. The temperature outside plummeted to a deadly -40 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to freeze exposed skin in seconds. Snow thickened into a swirling whiteout, erasing the horizon. The plane shuddered violently. Overhead bins burst open, spilling luggage into the aisles. Passengers gasped as the aircraft jolted like a toy caught in a hurricane. Then came the most chilling moment. An ear-splitting explosion echoed through the cabin. One of the engines had failed. The plane lurched sideways, tilting at a dangerous angle. Emergency lights flickered. Oxygen masks dangled from the ceiling. Panic spread like wildfire. From the cockpit, Captain Henderson's voice crackled over the radio, urgent and strained. "Mayday! Severe turbulence! Engine failure! Need immediate assist!" Then, silence. Flight TR-219 had vanished. No distress signal, no emergency landing transmission. 1 second, it was there, cutting through the Arctic night. The next, it was gone. The aviation world was thrown into chaos. Within hours, a massive search operation launched. 8 aircraft braved the brutal storm, scouring the sky for any trace of the missing flight. 4 enormous icebreakers churned through the frozen sea, desperately searching for wreckage before it disappeared beneath the ice. Even military satellites were repositioned to scan the region. But the storm had wiped away every clue. Days turned into weeks. Over 600 relentless hours of searching led to nothing. No debris, no oil slick, no black box transmission. It was as if Flight TR-219 had been swallowed by the Arctic itself. By January, authorities had no choice but to call off the search. Heartbroken families were left with nothing but unanswered questions, their loved ones lost in a mystery that refused to be solved. For more than 3 decades, the disappearance of Flight TR-219 remained one of aviation's greatest mysteries. Some experts theorized the plane had broken apart mid-air, its wreckage scattered across the unforgiving Arctic Ocean. Others whispered of eerie, unexplainable forces, strange electromagnetic disturbances, strange Arctic vortices, even assumption of something beyond human understanding. Then, in 2024, everything changed. A shocking discovery, something no one saw coming, shattered decades of speculation and finally revealed the fate of Flight TR-219. Shocking discovery beneath Arctic ice. It was a freezing January night in 2024, and Dr. Michael Blackwood sat hunched over his cluttered desk in a remote Arctic research station, completely absorbed in the high-resolution satellite images glowing on his monitor. Outside, the wind roared like a hungry beast, rattling the reinforced walls of the lab as if trying to claw its way inside. The thermometer read a brutal minus 28 degrees Celsius, but after 3 decades in some of the world's most unforgiving environments, Blackwood had grown used to the cold. At least, that's what he told himself. Yet, this night, the chill wasn't what sent shivers down his spine. One of their satellites had picked up something impossible, something buried deep beneath the ice. At first, he thought it was just another geological anomaly, but the readings told a different story. The structure was metallic. That alone made no sense. The Arctic had never been home to any advanced civilization, not according to history. His thoughts were interrupted by the sudden burst of footsteps pounding against the icy floor. The door flew open, and Amanda Noah, a young but sharp-minded radar specialist, rushed in, her breath coming in quick, frosty puffs. In her hands was a thick stack of printouts, her fingers gripping the edges so tightly her knuckles were pale. "Dr. Blackwood, you need to see this," she said, her voice charged with urgency. She slapped the thermal imaging scans onto his desk, spreading them out like pieces of an unsolved puzzle. Her hands trembled slightly as she pointed at a set of heat signatures glowing against the deep blue of the frozen landscape. "Look at these patterns," she insisted, her eyes locked onto his. "These aren't random heat fluctuations. They form a precise geometric network. Whatever's down there, it's generating heat, and it's structured, deliberate." Blackwood's pulse quickened as he traced the lines with his fingertips. The symmetry, the organization, this wasn't natural. Nature didn't work in perfect angles and grids, not under thousands of years of glacial ice. His mind raced with the implications. If this was artificial, it had to be ancient, possibly older than anything humanity had ever uncovered. Blackwood studied the data with intense focus. The dimensions of the structure were almost a perfect match for the long-lost Flight TR-219. But there was something else, something unsettling. The ice around the site wasn't just layered in typical formations. It had strange, repetitive patterns, almost as if some unknown force had been carving the same pathways through the frozen landscape for years. The deep grooves and swirling formations suggested an unnatural movement beneath the surface, something that defied easy explanation. Realizing the urgency of the discovery, one of the most ambitious Arctic research expeditions in recent history was greenlit within days. The team assembled wasn't just a group of scientists, it was an elite task force of specialists, each a master in their field. Jack Morrison, a veteran engineer with 20 years of experience working in extreme polar conditions, was tasked with leading the technical operations. Alongside him was Catherine Walsh, a survival expert who had spent years training in some of the harshest environments on Earth, from the Antarctic tundra to the Himalayan death zones. Supporting them was a team of 30 highly trained specialists, including glaciologists, climatologists, and geophysicists, all racing against time to unlock the secrets hidden beneath the ice. Time was the greatest enemy. Spring was rapidly approaching, and with it, rising temperatures threatened to erase the site forever. If the snow melted too quickly, critical evidence could be lost beneath shifting ice sheets or flooded by glacial runoff. The mission required a staggering 80 tons of equipment to be transported across the Arctic wilderness, an operation that pushed logistics to their limits. 4 massive heavy-lift helicopters, each capable of carrying over 15,000 pounds, worked around the clock, braving blistering winds and near-zero visibility to deliver life support units, industrial-grade generators, advanced ground-penetrating radar systems, and state-of-the-art drilling equipment. Supplies included insulated habitation modules designed to withstand -50 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, emergency medical stations, and a specialized command center equipped with real-time satellite uplinks for continuous data transmission. Despite the grueling conditions, the team achieved the impossible. In just 18 hours, they transformed a desolate stretch of ice into a fully functional scientific outpost. The giant lynxes in forbidden territory, out in the unforgiving Arctic wilderness, where survival is a brutal test even for top predators like polar bears, wolves, and wolverines. Biologist Catherine Walsh believed she had seen it all. After more than 20 years of studying the raw, untamed world of predator behavior, few things truly shocked her anymore. But one discovery near her remote research station completely shattered everything she thought she knew about Arctic wildlife. It started with a set of tracks imprinted in the fresh snow. At first, they seemed like the work of a polar bear, but something was off. The prints were too round, too symmetrical. Even stranger, they lacked the deep claw marks that usually carved into the ice under a bear's heavy step. Walsh crouched down for a closer look, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. Then, the realization hit her. These were lynx tracks. Impossible. Lynxes don't belong here. They are creatures of dense forests, where towering trees and thick underbrush provide cover for their stealthy movements. Their broad, padded paws allow them to stalk prey in deep snow, but not in this barren, windswept expanse of ice and tundra. The Arctic was too extreme, too exposed, and yet, the tracks were undeniable. For 3 days, the prints circled the excavation site, weaving in and out of the research camp. No one spotted the creature responsible, and the eerie silence of the Arctic only made the mystery more unsettling. Then, on the 4th morning, they finally appeared. Standing on a distant ridge, their silver-white fur shimmering in the pale glow, were 3 massive lynxes, a mother and her 2 cubs. But these weren't ordinary lynxes. They were enormous, far larger than any Walsh had ever encountered. Their thick coats blended seamlessly with the snow, their powerful limbs built for survival in this frozen wasteland. And most unnervingly, their sharp, intelligent eyes were locked onto the camp below. They weren't hiding. They weren't afraid. Walsh barely breathed as she whispered to herself, "Unbelievable. They're huge. And they know we're here." For a long, suspended moment, Predator and scientist simply stared at each other across the Arctic expanse, an impossible encounter that defied everything she had ever believed. The lynxes moved with an eerie precision, their sharp eyes sweeping over the wreckage like sentinels guarding a secret lost to time. That night, the Arctic revealed its true, merciless nature. The wind shrieked like a chorus of lost souls, tearing through the camp with icy claws, and the temperature plummeted to a bone-shattering -45°C. The team had weathered brutal storms before, but this one felt different. It wasn't just a storm. Amanda was making her way back from the generator station, her boots crunching against the frost-bitten ground. She pulled her scarf tighter against the howling wind when suddenly, a sharp, unnatural crack split the air. A heartbeat later, the ground beneath the station groaned and then gave way. Decades of shifting permafrost had weakened the ice, and now it was collapsing. The backup generator, hundreds of pounds of steel and machinery, lurched forward, teetering for a split second before plummeting straight toward Amanda. There was no time to run, no time to think. Then, out of the storm, a blur of silver erupted. The mother lynx. Moving faster than anything had a right to in such brutal cold, the lynx launched itself at Amanda, slamming into her with astonishing force. The impact sent her sprawling backward just as the generator crashed down, shattering the ice where she had stood a second earlier. A deafening boom echoed through the frozen wasteland, followed by an eerie silence. Amanda hit the ground hard, gasping as the breath was knocked from her lungs. Snow clung to her eyelashes, and for a moment, all she could hear was the pounding of her own heart. Then, warmth. A heavy, living weight pressed against her. The lynx. It didn't flee. It didn't snarl or bare its teeth. Instead, it curled slightly around her, shielding her from the relentless wind with its thick winter coat. Its breathing was deep and steady, not panicked, not wild. Amanda turned her head, locking eyes with the animal. And in those golden depths, she saw something she couldn't explain. It wasn't just instinct, it was awareness, a knowing, recognition. Then, as silently as it had appeared, the lynx stepped back, and in the blink of an eye, it was gone. The rest of the team arrived seconds later, their faces pale, their breath forming thick clouds in the freezing air. Amanda sat up, her voice barely above a whisper. "It saved me." No one spoke, because deep down, they all knew. This wasn't normal. Lynxes were elusive, avoiding humans whenever possible. And yet, this one had intervened. As if it had been watching. As if it had been waiting. At first, the team had dismissed the lynxes as just another part of the Arctic's untamed wilderness. But after that night, there was no denying it. Something else was at play. The frozen mystery. Two dedicated teams worked in grueling shifts, pushing their bodies to the limit as they braved the brutal cold. Armed with high-tech thermal drills and heated probes, they slowly melted their way through the dense frozen layers of ice. But progress was painfully slow. Sensors barely registered a temperature increase, and time was slipping through their fingers. Spring was creeping in, bringing rising temperatures that could turn the entire excavation site into a dangerous slush pit. If they weren't fast enough, all their hard work could melt away, leaving nothing but an icy lake swallowing their progress. Then, finally, at a depth of 20 meters, the first breakthrough. A jagged chunk of ice gave way, exposing something metallic beneath. The team held their breath as they brushed away the frost, revealing the long buried tail of a plane. Its metal shell, dulled by decades in the frozen abyss, was battered but eerily recognizable. And there, barely visible through the frost and corrosion, was the faded emblem of an airline. The sight sent chills down their spines. This wasn't just a rumor or an old conspiracy theory. This plane was real. They had found it. But something didn't sit right. Amanda, one of the lead researchers, was the first to notice. The ice surrounding the wreckage wasn't smooth and untouched like the rest of the glacier. It had strange patterns, faint, winding trails that twisted and curved unnaturally around the hull. At first, they thought it was a natural shift in the ice, but then came the real shock. Footprints. Every morning, fresh tracks appeared in the snow. They weren't random disturbances caused by wind or settling ice. They were too precise, too deliberate. It was as if something, or someone, was moving around the site with a purpose, and it got even stranger. As they mapped out the terrain, marking unstable sections with red flags, they began to see a disturbing pattern. Some of the markings weren't just scattered. They seemed to be leading them somewhere, almost as if something was trying to guide them. That evening, the first strange event struck. Out of nowhere, a powerful gust of wind roared through the frozen wasteland, tearing the attachments off the main generator. The massive structure groaned as it tipped dangerously to one side, right toward Amanda. The blizzard howled, drowning out the shouts of the crew. Just as it seemed Amanda was about to be crushed, a flash of movement cut through the swirling snow. The massive lynx lunged forward with incredible speed, slamming into Amanda's side and knocking her clear of danger. A deafening crash followed as the generator smashed onto the ice, sending cracks snaking outward like jagged lightning bolts. The air was thick with the sharp scent of burning metal and the eerie creaks of shifting ice. Amanda sat up, breathless, her heart pounding. She turned toward the lynx, which stood just a few feet away, its golden eyes locked onto hers. Later, still shaken, she whispered to the team, "This is impossible. It saved me. On purpose. Did you see its eyes? There was something intelligent about them." Meanwhile, the crew pushed forward with their excavation, racing against the brutal Arctic conditions. Giant floodlights cast an eerie glow over the icy walls, their flickering beams creating dancing shadows that seemed almost alive. The temperature had plummeted to nearly -50 degrees Fahrenheit, making even the smallest tasks an ordeal. Every breath formed thick clouds of vapor, and the constant risk of frostbite loomed over the team. Specialized equipment worked around the clock, blasting through the centuries-old ice. But the extreme cold fought back. The freshly melted water refroze almost instantly, forming new layers that had to be removed again and again. The team deployed 12 massive industrial pumps, working at full capacity, just to keep the excavation site from freezing solid. Jack Morrison had seen a lot of unusual ice formations in his career, but nothing like this. As he studied the labyrinth of frozen tunnels beneath them, he ran his gloved hand over the smooth, unnatural walls. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered in the next team meeting. "These channels, these strange hollow spaces, they aren't random. Something, or someone, has been digging tunnels here for decades, maybe centuries." Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. A passenger plane vanished without a trace, lost for decades in the icy wilderness. Then, years later, researchers stumbled upon its wreckage, frozen in time beneath layers of snow. Inside, they found eerie remains, skeletal passengers still in their seats, their belongings untouched. But something else lurked nearby. Paw prints circled the wreckage, and glowing eyes watched from the shadows. Lynxes had made the crash site their hunting ground. As the team explored, a chilling thought struck them. Had the Lynxes arrived after the crash, or had something far older and more dangerous been waiting in the ice all along? And if so, what happened to the passengers before they died? Let us have your opinions in the comment below. The Arctic Crash. A week after their search began, the team finally reached the passenger cabin, and what they found was like stepping into a frozen moment in time. Coffee mugs were still stuck to the tables as if waiting for their owners to return. Half-read magazines lay open on seats, their pages unmoved by even the slightest breeze. A child's doll, eerily untouched, sat abandoned in the hallway, its glassy eyes staring into the emptiness. But the most chilling discovery was a small leather-bound diary tucked into a first-class seat pocket. It belonged to flight attendant Sarah Parker. Her entries revealed the survivors' harrowing battle against the brutal Arctic cold. On December 25, 1991, out of 150 passengers, only 28 made it through the crash. They huddled together at the front of the plane, sharing body heat and whatever supplies they could find. Captain Henderson took charge, organizing shifts to ration food and fuel. But at night, strange noises echoed from the snow-covered wilderness, low growls, snapping branches, reminding them that they were not alone. On December 27th, the temperature plunged to a bone-shattering -52°F. 4 more lives were lost, claimed by the merciless cold. A teenage girl named Jane kept asking for her mother, but no one had the heart to tell her the truth. On December 28th, something truly unbelievable happened. Fresh Arctic hairs were found at the plane's entrance, their bodies completely intact, as if they had been deliberately placed there. That night, they noticed glowing eyes watching them from the darkness. Not predatory eyes, but something else. Large, sleek forms moved in the snow, just beyond the firelight. Lynxes, not as hunters, but as silent guardians. On December 30th, the cold was relentless. Another 11 people perished in their sleep, their bodies frozen stiff before sunrise. The survivors clung to life, their strength fading, and yet, the Lynxes remained. They moved like ghosts through the snow, their watchful presence an unexplainable comfort. Then, one of them, a mother, brought her kittens closer, as if offering them in trust. The survivors no longer feared the creatures. Without them, they might not have lasted another night. On January 2nd, 1992, only 12 of them remained. The Lynxes are still here. They come and go like spirits, their tracks vanishing with the wind. By January 10th, only 5 were left. The Lynxes kept bringing food, and one even curled up beside a frail woman, sharing its warmth. That's when Sarah understood. They weren't just surviving together, these animals were protecting them. By January 15th, Sarah was the last one standing. Yet, she wasn't alone. The Lynxes remained by her side, their watchful eyes filled with something deeper than instinct. She no longer felt the biting cold. In their presence, she realized a powerful truth. No one should be alone in this vast, frozen silence. Reading her diary unsettled the research team. Jack Morrison dismissed it as the ramblings of a mind pushed to the brink. But Catherine Walsh, an expert in Arctic predators, wasn't so sure. Lynxes weren't known to behave this way, at least not in any documented cases. Meanwhile, the excavation site was becoming dangerously unstable. The ice was melting at an alarming rate, cracks spreading like veins through the frozen landscape. Then, in mid-February, disaster struck. A sudden spike in temperature sent massive sheets of ice shifting, tearing the ground apart. The team scrambled to evacuate, but 3 members were trapped on the wrong side of a widening chasm. "You won't make it out there!" Amanda's voice barely carried through the howling storm. Then, through the whiteout, a shadow moved. Silent, sure, and deliberate. A lynx emerged from the blizzard, followed by her young. With unwavering confidence, they led the stranded researchers across what seemed like empty air. An invisible path, one that only the lynxes knew, held firm beneath their feet. The Arctic's ghostly guardians. When the team stumbled upon those old diaries, their reactions were all over the place. Jack Morrison brushed them off as nothing more than the ramblings of a dying man. But Catherine Walsh wasn't so sure. After all, she had spent 2 decades studying Arctic predators, and she had never seen a lynx behave the way this one did. Meanwhile, the ice was vanishing faster than they could keep up. Every day, the cracks in the frozen ground grew wider, and time was slipping through their fingers. Michael Blackwood pushed the team to work faster. He knew they had only a few days left before the site became too dangerous. Then, in late February, they uncovered something astonishing in the plane's cargo hold. Tucked away inside a container of scientific equipment was a weathered journal belonging to the meteorologist from Flight TR-219. His final entry dated December 23, 1991, at exactly 15 minutes 10 p.m., described eerie atmospheric disturbances and strange malfunctions in his instruments, things that defied explanation. But what sent chills down their spines was what they found beside the journal. A camera. And inside it, just one image. A blurry, unsettling shot of a massive lynx, its fur glowing under the northern lights. As if that wasn't eerie enough, the back cover of the journal bore a final message, scrawled in shaky handwriting. "They are the guardians of this place. They know more than we can comprehend." By early March, time was running out. The arrival of spring meant the ice was melting fast, turning the excavation into a frantic race against nature. Every day the ground grew softer, making it harder to dig, and soon the entire site would be buried under slush and water. But something even stranger was happening. The lynxes, usually elusive and shy, were appearing more often, behaving in ways no one could quite explain. "This lynx isn't just intelligent," Catherine admitted in an interview. "It remembers." As the final day approached, the team prepared to evacuate. The ice was disappearing at an alarming rate, making the ground dangerously unstable. That's when Amanda spotted it. A mother lynx, her piercing eyes locked onto the team as she paced anxiously. Then, as if guiding them, she drew their attention to a single cub, standing near what seemed like solid ground. Curious, the team followed, carefully stepping in the animal's tracks. What they found left them speechless. Beneath a thin layer of frost, they uncovered a hidden chamber. Inside, a sealed container lay undisturbed, filled with long-lost crew logs and personal belongings from the passengers. It was as if the lynxes had been guarding this secret all along, a final gift from the silent watchers of the crash site. As the last helicopter prepared to lift off, Blackwood caught sight of something eerie. Standing on a nearby cliff were 3 silver figures. They stood motionless, watching, just as they had watched the survivors 30 years ago. Today, a simple memorial stands at the crash site. Since then, the site has drawn researchers eager to study the Arctic lynx and its baffling behavior. The rare sightings continue, ghostly figures moving soundlessly through the ice, their silver coats blending seamlessly into the frozen landscape. They are still here, still watching, as if guarding the land where nature once revealed one of its greatest secrets. Catherine Walsh's research on the TR-219 lynxes has challenged everything they thought they knew about animal intelligence. "What we discovered," she said, goes beyond simple survival. These creatures displayed something deeper: empathy, a trait we once believed was uniquely human. Even in the coldest, harshest place on Earth, a bond had formed, one built not on instinct, but on something far rarer: compassion. And on certain nights, when the northern lights stretch across the Arctic sky, their shadows still appear. What are your thoughts about this shocking discovery made by the scientists? Share your opinions with us in the comments section below.